Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Erin Dee, the COO of Interlink Mortgage and the president of the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association, to talk about the Texas housing market, the challenges, and the opportunities. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Trust and Will, for making this episode possible. Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So I just most recently saw you at the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association Texas Housing Summit in Austin. That was an incredible event, and you guys did a really great job.
Thank you so much. It's so much hard work went into it, and we were really, really pleased with the turnout. It was kind of the first time for us doing a really big event like this, and it was just amazing.
Well, I think I gained a lot of insight from that event just because you had a full day of great content. And one of the reasons that you chose to do it where you did, so it was at the LBJ Presidential Library at the University of Texas. And it's because we came up on this really big anniversary for HUD, which I thought was just such a great way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, our CEO, Scott Norman, actually drew that to my attention. And he was like, listen, we've got this big anniversary coming up. LBJ Library is in Texas, in Austin. I think we really should take this opportunity to have a commemoration, a celebration, and to really draw the focus on Texas. And that plan was just executed flawlessly.
Which it was so great. You actually had a speaker who had worked with LBJ, who knew him and had just amazing things. But I thought it was such a great reminder of what HUD was created for, what the mission was, and just looking back on 60 years, what we're looking forward to. So let's talk about today, because so much of it was today, and really understanding what the challenges are. So from my perspective, affordability came up over and over again on that day. Do you feel like that's the biggest challenge for mortgage lenders in Texas?
Absolutely. And it's not just isolated to Texas. It really is nationally, but affordability in everything from higher cost of living, stagnant wages, interest rates, insurance, obviously. It's something that really is affecting every single one of our communities. And so for us to be able to focus on it and really wanting to try to come up with solutions was a very big deal for us, and why we wanted it to be a prevailing theme throughout the entire time.
Let's talk about insurance a little bit, because I'm not sure that people think about, I mean, they did when it was like, different hurricanes, you might think of Texas, but we have some ongoing things. I mean, like I live in North Texas, so tornadoes, hail damage, wind damage, very big.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Texas is actually, I believe, the state that has the highest amount of claims last year, and I believe also this year, which even with the California Palisades fire, we I believe are number one, if not number two in the nation in insurance claims. Because of that, we also have wildfires here in Texas. Hail is getting absolutely out of control. They have, I forget the name of it now, but it's like mega hail, where it's just giant hail that's coming down. So it's not even normal hail anymore, right? And in addition to having all of the windstorms, hurricanes, all of that. And so Texas, for us, it really is a very, very big deal. And we don't have similar legislation that restricts price increases on insurance, which has allowed us to continue to have a thriving and competitive insurance market. But it has also meant that our insurance rates have continued to increase significantly, which really does, hamper homeownership and affordability.
I think, one of the things about Texas is, and I've lived here for now more than 30 years, so that's exciting, is that, we're drawing all of this business, we're drawing all these jobs here, which means we're drawing new people here. There's been a ton of growth. But part of that is, and the reason they're coming is because it's a great business environment, right?
Yes.
It's a great place to build homes. It's a great place to, to have more inventory and create a business. But with that, it has some specific challenges because, like you said, like we don't have some of the same laws that they do in Florida or in California that can be good and bad.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And you're completely right. So at the event, we actually discussed how right now JP Morgan Chase has more employees in Texas than in New York City. Goldman is moving people here. All kinds of businesses are moving here, which is awesome, right? Texas is growing, and that really allows Texas MBA to continue to take kind of a forefront in that. But one of the things we have to do is continue having this conversation around how do we create communities, have lending guidelines, and wherever else we can to help bring those costs of insurance down. And there's a lot of solutions that can be done, and we just need to continue to talk about them and foster them in environments like our housing summit.
I think that, you know, when we talk about affordability, Texas still ranks, you know, it's a very affordable place
Yes.
to live and also to run a business for much of the country. But as someone who's lived here for a couple of decades, it's wild to me what home prices currently are, say, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I mean, it
Yes.
used to be when you bought a house in Dallas, you're like, okay, when I sell this in 10 years, I hope I make enough to, pay for the real estate and have like $10,000 or $15,000. I mean, it was never
Yeah.
like this huge wealth building or cash machine that you might see in like other places like California. And now we are. I mean, we're not at that level, but it is definitely a different environment than it used to be.
It absolutely is. And I think in your example, 10 years, if you bought 10 years ago, you're in a really great equity position, right? But for those, and I include myself in this because, I had a personal situation. I had to buy a home in February of 2023. And so in Austin, and so, we've seen a leveling out, right? And we've actually seen a decline in values in some of the markets. Dallas, I know, and then Austin specifically as well. And so it's weird because you kind of have a tale of two different homeowners. Did you buy, pre 2020 or even into 2021, or did you buy after? Because you're in vastly different situations, specifically here in Texas. And we are very affordable generally otherwise. But from a home equity perspective and home price perspective, there's two very different situations happening right now.
So speak to what people talk about as the Texas Triangle, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas. And I'm always surprised that they don't have Austin in there. But I guess when you draw it out to San Antonio, Austin's in there.
Austin, yeah, Austin's in there, the Pythagorean theorem or something like that. So, yeah. So the Texas Triangle really is this amazing area of, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. And really that San Antonio and Austin MSA is really kind of becoming one big, massive MSA. But there's a ton of growth. That's where you have a ton of businesses that are coming in there. And that's where you've really seen the vast majority of the population growth. And Houston is a little bit different right now than, say, an Austin or Dallas. The values there are still increasing, although a little bit smaller. Houston's a little bit more of an affordable city than the others. But that Texas Triangle area continues to be very strong, and where a lot of businesses are moving, and we're still seeing a lot of new people moving into Texas. I think it was like 1,500 people a day are moving to Texas still, which is, phenomenal stat.
That is a phenomenal stat.
Yeah.
There's a bright future for mortgage, originators in Texas, I think, and for real estate folks as well. Well,
Yeah,
let's talk
absolutely.
about Houston a little bit because you had two experts on stage. You had Ed Pinto,
Mhm.
and you had a local person from Houston who have seen some pretty amazing things about what has happened in Houston. Do they call it the Houston Miracle about building there? So let's talk about that. What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Houston has been a very affordable city. And so Houston is an area where you're still able to get a home for a very reasonable price, where there's a ton of building area specifically still. There's a ton of building that's still going on in the Houston area, and it just continues to expand out. Houston does have challenges from the weather perspective. As somebody who relocated from Austin to Houston in the last, year and a half, I think within the first month of me being there, we had a derecha, and then a month later had a hurricane. So I've dealt with it specifically. So it can have its challenges. But yeah, I mean, in Houston specifically, it still is a really, really strong and affordable market to be in.
I think one of the things that in that particular session they talked about, because people think like, oh, okay, well, Houston, that's because they don't have any, they don't have any zoning or they don't have a lot of regulations. And your two guests were like, I mean, that's true. They
Yeah.
are a very, they have very lax regulations compared to a lot of other places. But they really put it down to the fact that they were able to pass something, they were able to get lot sizes down. And getting
Yes.
lot sizes down is the key to building infill housing, affordable missing middle housing that is like, this is the key that I think every city is looking for. Like, how do we do that? And they were like, it's not just the regulation, it's the fact that we were able to do, lot sizes being so small. It's like not like they're building tiny homes. These are not small
No.
homes. They might be 3 and 4 bedroom homes, but they're on a tiny lot.
Yeah, and that's actually the exact home that I live in Houston, and it's perfect for me, right? I don't need a massive backyard, and so for me, living in the city center, wanting to still have a reasonable commute to work, right? Because if you're forced to have to build, 30, 40, 50 miles away from your office, that really makes it, takes a big bite out of your quality of life. And so in Houston, I'm in a 2,000 square foot home, but I'm very close to my neighbors, but I still am able to have an affordable home. I'm still able to be very close to my work. And yeah, the zoning in Houston is interesting. It's actually kind of wild. Sometimes you can see really weird things next to each other that don't belong. And so I do agree the zoning has helped, but yes, to your point, being able to have those smaller lot sizes, it's a trade-off because again, you don't have that big, massive yard. But if you're a young family, if you're looking for something where you cannot have to be miles and miles away from a city center, it is ideal, and you can get more people in, and more homes built, which just allows us to keep prices down, which is really something that is going to help our communities thrive.
I really appreciate it because I felt like that is a portable idea. You might
Yes.
be in Ohio, you might be in California, you might be in another place, but the idea of like if you build, if you can get smaller lot sizes in infill city locations, there is like this demand for that. There is built-in demand for that, and that's really what's missing right now. And that's something that we can, that people can take and do, or try to do in a lot of different places.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Austin has been working on something similar, trying to create similar zoning codes. Obviously, it also helps where if you're able to build these communities, you can create smaller lots, but then also work on building homes that are built to more resilient standards. That's also going to help with affordability because if you have an entire community built to higher standards from a resiliency standpoint, especially in areas like Houston where you have a lot of storms, then you can also work on being able to have insurance companies bring those insurance rates down because they have all the homes in that area are going to be more resilient, less insurance claims, and it just makes a lot of sense.
It does. It's funny because I live in a home that's very much like you described. It's just not in the city center. It's out in the exurbs of Dallas because there wasn't that kind of. I couldn't find an affordable area within Dallas, the city.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting you're talking about that.
Well,
I
and I
tell you what.
also, just to be fair, I refuse to mow a lawn, and so now I don't have to, which is great. Good side benefit.
And I do not need to mow a lawn. Yeah, no. I actually pay a guy $15. That's how small my backyard lawn is. It's
15.
$15. And I kept going like, is he going to come back for $15? Like I'm willing to pay him more if I just know he's going to come back because how is that worth anybody's time? But
That's insane. I love it. My backyard, my postage stamp of a backyard is nothing but turf, so I don't even have to do that. It's great.
see, smart. I think this is so interesting because last year I was in New Hampshire. I was up there and met with their New Hampshire realtors, and they were talking about their average lot size in New Hampshire. I think is 3 acres, and just think about the difficulty, the challenge of building any kind of affordable housing if you have a 3-acre minimum to build a house. And obviously in cities it was a little bit different, but it's just these are the kind of obstacles that people are facing all over the country where it's like we just have to think about home differently. And I think that's something that your conference did really well was like whatever we thought in the 1950s or 60s or 70s or 80s, it's like the demand has changed and we haven't really, there hasn't been a way to really change with it. And
Mhm.
yet, if we can think outside the box and get some of these things done, we can create homeownership in places where there wasn't before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the important thing, right? Is things change, life changes, and we have to be able to adapt to that. And we cannot continue to look at housing the way that we always have, right? And in some areas you can, there's going to be areas where you can continue to have if you want that big yard or whatever. But for those of us who are really trying to bring down costs in areas, especially where we're trying to bring a lot and attract a lot of employers, we have to be able to make sure that their employees can have affordable housing, safe communities, resilient communities.
I think one of the things I appreciate about going to, a statewide event like this was just seeing, because of course there are national advocacy groups, trade groups that people belong to that are doing amazing work at the national level, and we need that desperately,
Absolutely.
right? But then you think about, you had some people on stage that went through the legislative wins that you had in this very short. We have a pretty short legislative session in Texas. It's only every other year, and just the fact of what you guys have been able to do, I thought was pretty amazing. Maybe you could talk about a couple of those wins.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a few, right? And the thing that's great is at Texas MBA, we have our general counsel, Meredith Fowler, who is phenomenal, but she's built a really strong group, the industry, kind of call it the building trades group, where there's strong relationships with title, with the builders, with the bankers, with kind of everybody who's in that sphere. So it allows us to have a really strong voice. And so some of the wins that we've had, the AI bill, the Texas AI bill that ultimately got passed, it's a lot better than what the original bill was passed. And that's kind of the thing about advocacy that sometimes people don't always see, is sometimes you don't see the big wins, and that's in killing really bad bills or making really bad bills much better bills. And I think that was a big thing that they did. So we had the AI bill. We worked really hard on the foreign ownership bill. That's something that we're still definitely working on, but also working on everything from property taxes, building codes, insurance, trying to create more transparency around insurance. There were just several items and several bills that we worked on to try to really make it so that we can help homeowner affordability. There was one bill that was trying to create these massive impact fees that was going to do nothing but increase the cost of building to consumers. And so we worked really hard on that one to be able to defeat that. We also worked on fraud bills and trying to make sure that we're helping prevent real estate fraud, title fraud. We also worked really hard to prevent scenarios that were taking advantage of elders, of elderly homeowners who were, there were some bad players getting them to sign contracts that put them in really bad positions to sell their home. So we worked hard to defeat that as well. And so every single session, we work very hard along with the legislature to make sure that they really understand unintended consequences, and to make sure that those bad bills that can hurt homeowners, hurt affordability, are defeated wherever possible, or at least made to be less bad.
That sort of structure where you have that sort of housing coalition, so it's real estate, title, appraisal, home builders, mortgage, is that common when you look at other state associations, the way they sort of tackle this?
No, it's really not. I think Texas is honestly unique to a lot of other states. We really have a strong background. We're the oldest state MBA, and so we've been able to kind of build those relationships, build our reputation. We work really, really hard, both at the state and the national level, to support MBA in their efforts as well. And so I think that we truly are unique and truly special in that regard. I know California has a really strong association as well, and they're very involved. And so, but I think generally speaking, kind of what Texas MBA is doing is pretty special and pretty unique.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys are a vanguard for sure. Okay, so when you look back at all of the speakers and what we learned, and what are you predicting for 2026 as far as the Texas housing market?
So I think it is going to continue to be a challenging market. I think seeing the delinquencies rise, specifically in that Ginnie Mae portfolio in Texas, I think it's going to cause further correction in housing prices. And so while we're going to continue to advocate for more affordable solutions from a lending perspective, I do think that we're going to see a correction in housing prices. I don't know that it's going to be a crash. I'm not predicting that. I'm not a doomer, but I do think that there is definitely going to be a correction coming, just in terms of what we're already seeing with prices in certain markets, and then also looking to have a continued difficult environment. We're seeing layoffs, looking at a lot of the alternative data sources that are out there. Danielle DiMartino Booth, who is amazing, she was one of our speakers. I had the opportunity to do a Q&A with her, and she really highlighted a lot of alternative data sources that weren't available to us during, or that have always been available to us, but during the shutdown, they took more prominence. So I think that the jobs environment is going to continue to be challenging, and I think that is going to put more pressure on housing prices, to where 26 will be pretty challenging. But I think we'll probably, I don't think it's going to be a terrible crash, just a correction, which, to be honest, from affordability perspective, is something that's probably needed.
Right. There are positives to that. I also think that like there are so many things that are very specific to Texas, and then there are
Yes.
these larger issues that everyone's dealing with the same things. So
Yeah,
appreciate you
exactly.
being on, Erin. It's great to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm always happy to be here. We at Texas MBA absolutely love our partnership with HousingWire, and so we're always happy to be here, and we love having you at our events. So thank you very much.